You think you can just waltz into first class? This ain't your place. Get back to economy where you belong. Evelyn Carter, the lead flight attendant for Horizon Airlines, snapped at Amara Johnson, a 19-year-old black woman clutching a valid first-class boarding pass. Her words slicing through the air with a venom that left Amara momentarily frozen, her heart pounding as the sting of prejudice hit her like a slap in the face. Hey, before we dive into this powerful story, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If you believe everyone deserves respect, no matter who they are, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to join us in spreading stories of justice and equality. Now, let's get into it. The morning sun streamed through the towering glass windows of John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, casting a warm glow over the bustling terminal on a crisp June day in 2024. The air buzzed with the hum of travelers, suitcases rolling across polished floors, intercoms blaring flight announcements, and the occasional burst of laughter from families embarking on summer adventures. Amid the sea of passengers, Amara Johnson stood out, not because she craved attention, but because of the quiet confidence she carried. Dressed in a sleek gray coat and dark jeans, her poised demeanor and bright eyes hinted at a story far deeper than her appearance. Amara gripped her first-class boarding pass, a gift from her father, Michael Johnson, to celebrate her completing a prestigious scholarship program at Harvard University with honors. This wasn't just a flight from New York to Los Angeles. It was a homecoming after 3 years away, a chance to reunite with her father and reflect on her journey. The first-class lounge was a haven of luxury, plush leather armchairs, soft jazz playing in the background, and the rich aroma of complimentary lattes filling the air. Amara settled into a cozy seat near a window. Placing her phone and a steaming latte on the table, she glanced at her boarding pass for the 10th time, not out of doubt, but out of excitement. The first-class seat wasn't just a perk, it was a symbol of her hard work, a reward for the countless late nights studying and overcoming obstacles as a young black woman in academia. As she sipped her coffee, a text from her father popped up. "You boarding soon. Let me know when you're settled." "Kiddo," Amara smiled, typing back. "Almost there. Dad, I'll text when I'm on the plane." All good. Michael Johnson wasn't just a doting dad. He was the founder and CEO of Horizon Airlines, a powerhouse in the industry with $12 billion in annual revenue in 2024. Yet, his humility kept his personal life out of the spotlight. Amara grew up learning from him to treat everyone, janitors to executives, with equal respect, a value she held close. Few knew she was his daughter, and she preferred it that way. This flight was more than a trip. It was a moment to reconnect with her roots and celebrate how far she'd come. As she scrolled through her phone, daydreaming about the family dinner planned in L.A., she noticed 2 flight attendants at the service counter across the lounge. Evelyn Carter, a seasoned professional with sharp features and a tightly wound bun, cast a glance her way. "First class is getting way too accessible these days," Evelyn muttered to her colleague, Sarah, her voice low but laced with a smug superiority, as if Amara's presence was an affront to the lounge's exclusivity. Sarah gave a nervous chuckle, avoiding a response, but Evelyn's words hung in the air like a warning, unaware of the storm brewing. Amara stood as the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. She adjusted her carry-on bag and joined the first-class line, her boarding pass ready. The lounge's ambiance, its soft lighting and calming music, felt like a sanctuary, but Amara couldn't shake a subtle unease as she approached the gate. She handed her pass to Evelyn, expecting a routine check, but the attendant's demeanor shifted. Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she scanned the ticket, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Economy's that way," she said curtly, pointing toward the back of the plane without meeting Amara's gaze. Amara blinked, caught off guard. "This is a first-class ticket," she replied, her voice steady but soft. Holding the pass up for clarity, Evelyn didn't budge. "There's got to be a mistake. Move along to economy. Please." The words were polite on the surface, but their edge was unmistakable, carrying a weight that made Amara's stomach twist. She felt the eyes of other passengers behind her, their impatience growing, but she stood her ground. "There's no mistake," she said, her tone firm yet calm. "This is my seat in first class." Evelyn's smile was tight, almost mocking. "Look, I don't want a scene. Just head to economy so we can keep things moving." The dismissal was like a punch, and Amara's grip tightened on her bag. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, but her father's words echoed in her mind. "Always carry yourself with dignity, no matter how others act." She stepped onto the plane, determined to take her rightful seat, unaware that this moment would spark a chain of events that would challenge her resilience and expose Evelyn's deep-seated biases. Across the lounge, Evelyn exchanged a smirk with Sarah, muttering, "Some people think they can just sneak into places they don't belong." Her words, dripping with prejudice, set the stage for a confrontation that would ripple far beyond the flight. As Amara walked toward her seat, the weight of Evelyn's judgment followed her, but so did her own strength, a quiet resolve forged through years of overcoming obstacles. This was no ordinary flight. It was the beginning of a journey that would test her courage, affirm her worth, and ultimately change the course of Horizon Airlines. As Amara Johnson settled into her assigned first-class seat on the Horizon Airlines flight from JFK to LAX, the plush leather and spacious legroom offered little comfort against the sting of Evelyn Carter's dismissive words. "This ain't your place." That lingered like a bitter aftertaste, a stark reminder that her presence was being questioned not for her ticket's validity, but for the color of her skin. The cabin's serene ambiance, soft lighting, the gentle hum of the engines, and the clink of glasses as other first-class passengers were served, felt like a cruel contrast to the tension knotting her stomach. Amara adjusted the window shade, gazing at the tarmac below, her mind racing with a mix of humiliation and defiance. She clutched her boarding pass, its crisp edges a tangible proof of her right to be there. Yet Evelyn's cold dismissal at the gate had planted a seed of doubt, not in her worth, but in how far others would go to undermine it. Determined to hold her ground, Amara stowed her carry-on in the overhead bin and sat tall, her posture radiating the quiet strength her father, Michael Johnson, had instilled in her. Never let anyone dim your light, no matter how they try. Evelyn, meanwhile, strode into the first-class cabin, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, her face a mask of professional courtesy that barely concealed her annoyance. She approached Amara's row, her voice clipped, but laced with a veneer of politeness. "Miss, I need to see your boarding pass again," she said, her tone suggesting Amara was an intruder. Amara handed over the pass, her hands steady despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "This is my seat," she said calmly, meeting Evelyn's gaze. The attendant scanned the pass, her eyes narrowing as if searching for a flaw, then handed it back with a tight smile. "There's been a mistake. First class is for paying passengers. You'll need to move to economy." The words hit Amara like a slap, and the murmurs from nearby passengers, some curious, others judgmental, only deepened the sting. "This is my ticket," Amara replied, her voice firm but soft, holding up the pass again. "My father booked it for me." Evelyn's eyebrow arched, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Your father? And where's he now?" Amara swallowed the lump in her throat, responding. "He's waiting for me in Evelyn scoffed, glancing around as if seeking validation from the other passengers, some of whom shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "I'm going to verify this," she said curtly. "Stay here." As Evelyn walked away, Amara felt the weight of every stare in the cabin, a mix of pity, indifference, and subtle disdain. The isolation was suffocating, but she recalled her father's advice: dignity is your shield. She took a deep breath, refusing to let tears betray her composure. Minutes later, Evelyn returned, her expression harder. "I'm sorry, but this seat's been assigned to someone else," she declared, loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "You need to move to economy now." Amara's heart sank, but she held up her pass again. "How can it be assigned to someone else? This is my seat." Evelyn's patience snapped, her voice rising. "If you don't comply, I'll call security." The threat hung heavy, and the cabin grew tense as passengers whispered among themselves. A businessman muttered, "She's holding up the flight," while an older woman across the aisle frowned, whispering, "This doesn't feel right." Yet no one spoke up. Amara's resolve wavered, but she stood firm, her voice steady. "I'm not moving until you check the system." Evelyn, undeterred, signaled for security. 2 officers boarded, their presence amplifying the drama. "Ma'am, we need you to move to economy," one said, his tone professional but firm. Amara showed them her pass, explaining, "This is my assigned seat. I have every right to be here." The officers glanced at Evelyn, who nodded sharply. "Her seat's in economy," she insisted, despite Amara's protests. The officers, deferring to Evelyn's authority, escorted her to the back of the plane. The walk down the aisle felt endless, each step accompanied by the weight of passengers' stares, some sympathetic, others smug. In first class, Evelyn returned with a triumphant smirk, muttering to a colleague, "That's how you handle troublemakers. First class is for those who belong." Her words, dripping with prejudice, sparked uneasy glances among some passengers, but no one challenged her. In economy. Amara took her new seat, her posture still upright, her expression composed despite the humiliation burning within. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed a message to her father, Dad. "They moved me to economy. The attendant said my ticket was a mistake." Michael's reply was instant. "Stay calm. Sweetheart, I'll handle this. Let me know if anything else happens." Amara stared at the screen, her father's words a lifeline. She pressed the call button, hoping a simple request for water might ease her nerves. Evelyn, spotting her, approached with a curt, "Yes," Amara asked politely. "Could I have a glass of water? Please." Evelyn's thin smile didn't reach her eyes. "Sure," she said, turning away, but 15 minutes passed with no water. Amara pressed the button again, and Evelyn's return was marked by an unmistakable edge. "What now?" she snapped. "I'm still waiting for my water," Amara said, her voice calm but firm. Evelyn's response was clipped. "I'll get to it. Yet." As Amara watched, Evelyn moved through first class, serving drinks with exaggerated warmth to other passengers while ignoring her request. The deliberate slight was clear, and Amara's frustration grew, but so did her resolve. She typed another message to her father. "She's ignoring me on purpose. Dad, it's getting worse." As the plane soared above the clouds, Amara looked out the window, the vast sky a reminder of her own potential. She jotted a note on her phone. "They can move me, but they can't break me. I am enough." This quiet act of defiance, born from her Harvard days of overcoming bias, would later inspire thousands. Unbeknownst to Evelyn, her actions were setting the stage for a reckoning, one that would come not from Amara's anger, but from her unyielding dignity and the power of her father's influence. Seated in the cramped confines of the economy section, Amara Johnson stared out the small window at the endless expanse of clouds. Her note: "They can move me, but they can't break me. I am enough," still glowing on her phone. a quiet testament to the resilience that kept her grounded despite the humiliation inflicted by Evelyn Carter's deliberate slights. The hum of the plane's engines and the chatter of passengers around her faded as she grappled with the sting of being singled out. Her first-class ticket now a cruel irony in the narrow economy seat. Evelyn's refusal to bring the water Amara requested, coupled with her exaggerated attentiveness to first-class passengers, made it clear this was no mere oversight but a targeted act of prejudice. Amara's fingers tightened around her phone. Her father's last message. "Stay calm. Sweetheart. I'll handle this." A lifeline she clung to, though she hesitated to lean on his influence, determined to face this ordeal with her own strength. She pressed the call button again, hoping for a response. But Evelyn's absence stretched on, her deliberate avoidance a silent message that Amara didn't belong. The weight of isolation pressed down. Yet Amara recalled a moment from her Harvard days, when she'd stood before a lecture hall and shared her story of overcoming bias to earn her scholarship, a speech that had moved her peers to tears. That memory fueled her resolve, and she whispered to herself, "I won't let her define me." As she waited, a soft voice broke her thoughts. An older woman, Helen, who'd been in first class, approached during a trip to the restroom. "I saw what happened up there," Helen said, her eyes kind but firm. "That wasn't right. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. If there's anything I can do, just say so." Amara, caught off guard by the stranger's empathy, managed a small smile. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm okay. But your words mean a lot." Helen nodded, placing a gentle hand on Amara's arm before returning to her seat. Her act of kindness a flicker of warmth in the cold atmosphere. Moments later, a young woman in economy, Maya, leaned over from a nearby row, her voice low but fierce. "That flight attendant's always harsh to people like us," she said, her eyes flashing with indignation. "She acts like we can't afford first class. What she did to you was wrong, and I hope she gets what's coming." Amara felt a surge of gratitude, the solidarity from Maya grounding her further. "Thanks for saying that," she replied softly. "I believe things will work out." These small gestures from strangers reminded Amara she wasn't alone, and she jotted another note on her phone. "Kindness from others is a reminder of who I am." This reflection, born in the moment, would later become the cornerstone of her viral speech. Meanwhile, in first class, Evelyn continued her duties with a smug air, unaware of the storm brewing. She boasted to a colleague, "Some people think they can just claim whatever they want, but it takes experience to spot the ones who don't belong." Her words, overheard by nearby passengers, sparked uneasy glances, with some shaking their heads in disapproval. Though none spoke up, Evelyn's confidence, however, began to falter when another flight attendant, Sarah, quietly questioned her. Was that really necessary? Evelyn. She had a valid ticket. Evelyn brushed it off, her tone sharp. "I'm maintaining standards. You wouldn't understand." But the doubt in Sarah's eyes lingered, a crack in Evelyn's self-assured facade, back in economy. Amara pressed the call button again, her patience thinning but her composure intact. When Evelyn finally appeared, her expression was icy. "What do you need now?" she asked, her voice sharp enough to draw glances from nearby passengers. "I'm still waiting for the water I asked for," Amara said, her tone polite but unwavering. Evelyn's lips pursed into a thin smile. "I'll get to it when I can," she said, turning away without another word. 20 minutes passed, and no water arrived. Amara watched as Evelyn moved through first class, serving drinks with a practiced smile, her attentiveness to others a stark contrast to her neglect of Amara. The intentional slight cut deeper than the initial confrontation, and Amara felt a familiar ache. the kind that came from years of navigating spaces where her presence was questioned. Yet, she refused to let it consume her. She typed a new message to her father, "Dad. She's ignoring me on purpose. It's not just the seat. It's personal." Michael's reply was swift. "Hang in there. Amara, I'm making a call now. Stay strong." The assurance gave her a moment of relief, but the weight of Evelyn's actions pressed harder. Amara closed her eyes, picturing her father's calm strength, and remembered a lesson he'd taught her. Respect isn't given. Sometimes you have to demand it with your actions. She decided to act, not out of anger, but from a place of dignity. She pressed the call button once more, this time with a quiet resolve, knowing each press was a refusal to be invisible. As Evelyn approached again, her annoyance palpable, a young boy in the row ahead turned to his mother and whispered, "Why's she being so mean to her?" The mother shushed him, but the question hung in the air, noticed by others. Amara met Evelyn's gaze, her voice steady. "I'd like my water, please, and an explanation for why you're ignoring me." Evelyn froze, caught off guard by Amara's directness, and muttered, "I'm busy. You'll get it soon." But the exchange didn't go unnoticed. A middle-aged man nearby leaned toward his companion, murmuring, "Something's off here. That girl's being targeted." The ripples of discontent spread, and Amara felt a shift, not in the cabin, but within herself. She was no longer just enduring. She was asserting her right to be seen. Her Harvard speech came to mind again, where she'd spoken of turning pain into power, and she began drafting a new note. "Every challenge is a chance to rise. I choose to rise." This moment of clarity, scribbled in the dim light of economy, would later inspire thousands when shared online. As the flight continued, the tension in the cabin grew palpable, with passengers whispering and Evelyn's bravado showing cracks. Unbeknownst to her, Michael Johnson's call was about to reach the cockpit, setting the stage for a reckoning that would challenge her assumptions and affirm Amara's strength. Amara sat back, her resolve hardened, knowing that justice was not just coming, it was already in motion, carried by her refusal to be diminished. As the Horizon Airlines flight from JFK to LAX cruised at 35,000 feet, Amara Johnson sat in her economy seat, her resolve solidified by the note on her phone. "Every challenge is a chance to rise. I choose to rise." A quiet mantra that anchored her against the lingering sting of Evelyn Carter's targeted neglect, which had escalated from ignoring her request for water to a blatant display of prejudice that left the cabin buzzing with unease. The whispers of passengers, sparked by Amara's calm yet firm confrontation, had created a subtle shift in the atmosphere, with some casting sympathetic glances her way while others murmured about the injustice they'd witnessed. Unbeknownst to Evelyn, the consequences of her actions were closing in, as a secure line in the cockpit rang, carrying the authoritative voice of Michael Johnson, Amara's father and the CEO of Horizon Airlines, whose $12 billion empire was built on principles of fairness and respect. In the cockpit, Captain David Thompson, a 20-year veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, listened intently as Michael delivered clear instructions, ensure his daughter was treated with the dignity she deserved, and addressed the flight attendant's misconduct immediately. "I'll be meeting the plane in L.A., Michael said, his tone calm but unyielding, "and I expect a full explanation." The captain, sensing the gravity of the situation, summoned Evelyn to the cockpit, his face stern as he relayed the message. "You've mishandled a passenger. Ms. Carter," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "That passenger is Amara Johnson, the CEO's daughter. Mr. Johnson is not happy, and he's ordered you to correct your behavior now." Evelyn's face drained of color, her usual confidence crumbling as the realization hit. She hadn't just crossed a passenger. She'd targeted the daughter of the man who signed her paycheck. Stammering, she managed, I didn't know she was his daughter." "Sir," the captain's expression didn't soften. "That's irrelevant. Your job is to treat every passenger with respect. And you've failed." As Evelyn returned to the first-class cabin, her brisk steps slowed, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped a service tray to steady herself. The smugness she'd displayed earlier was gone, replaced by a nervous energy that didn't go unnoticed by her colleagues or the passengers, some of whom exchanged knowing glances, sensing a shift in the power dynamic, determined to salvage the situation. Evelyn made her way to Amara's economy seat, her heart pounding as she forced a smile. "Miss Johnson," she began, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Can I get you anything? A drink? A snack? Maybe a hot towel?" Amara looked up, her expression neutral but her eyes piercing, seeing through the sudden change in demeanor. "No. Thank you," she replied, her tone polite yet distant, signaling she wasn't swayed by the belated gesture. Evelyn, desperate to undo her mistake, returned twice more, offering blankets and premium snacks, each time met with Amara's calm refusal. "I'm fine," Amara said firmly, her words a quiet assertion of her dignity. Passengers nearby began to whisper, their curiosity piqued by Evelyn's newfound attentiveness. "She's never this nice," one murmured. "Something's up," said another, shaking their head. Evelyn's attempts at amends grew more frantic, her polished exterior cracking as she crouched beside Amara's seat, her voice trembling. "Miss Johnson, I'm so sorry for earlier. It was a misunderstanding. Can we put this behind us?" Amara studied her for a moment, her composure unshaken. "The matter's out of my hands now," she said evenly. "My father's handling it." The words landed like a stone, and Evelyn's face fell, the weight of her actions sinking in fully. She stood, retreating to the galley, where she lingered, her hands gripping the counter as if to anchor herself against the looming consequences. In economy. Amara felt a mix of relief and resolve, her father's promise of action giving her strength, but it was her own resilience that kept her steady. She recalled a moment from her Harvard scholarship interview, where she'd faced a panel skeptical of her background, yet won them over with her poise and intellect. That same strength guided her now, and she added to her phone notes, "My worth isn't defined by their doubts, but by my response to them." This reflection, born in the face of adversity, would later resonate with millions online. Meanwhile, the cabin buzzed with speculation, as passengers like Helen, the older woman from first class, and Maya, the young woman in economy, exchanged quiet words of support for Amara. "She's handling this with grace," Helen whispered to a seatmate, while Maya told another, "I hope that attendant learns her lesson." Their words, though soft, carried a collective hope for justice. In first class, Evelyn's colleagues began to distance themselves, their uneasy glances revealing their discomfort with her earlier boasts. "You went too far," Sarah, her fellow attendant, whispered, shaking her head. Evelyn's bravado was gone, replaced by a tense silence as she avoided eye contact, her mind racing with the realization that Michael Johnson's intervention was imminent. Amara, meanwhile, sat back in her seat, her gaze returning to the clouds outside. She thought of her father's unwavering support and the values he'd instilled: respect, dignity, and the courage to stand up for what's right. As the plane continued its journey, the tension in the air was palpable, a silent acknowledgement that Amara's quiet strength was about to shift the narrative. Her refusal to be diminished, coupled with the impending arrival of her father, set the stage for a confrontation that would not only address Evelyn's actions, but also spark a broader conversation about accountability and change within Horizon Airlines. Amara's note on her phone grew longer, each word a step toward a speech that would inspire thousands, a testament to her ability to turn pain into purpose. As the flight neared LAX, the cabin seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when justice would land alongside the plane, carried by the weight of Michael's authority and Amara's unyielding spirit. As the Horizon Airlines flight touched down at Los Angeles International Airport, the tension that had simmered throughout the journey reached its peak, with Amara Johnson's resolute note. "My worth isn't defined by their doubts, but by my response to them," still burning brightly on her phone, a beacon of her unwavering dignity in the face of Evelyn Carter's prejudice. The cabin, once alive with whispers and uneasy glances, fell into a hushed anticipation as passengers gathered their belongings, their eyes darting toward the windows where a sleek black SUV pulled up beside the aircraft, its polished surface gleaming under the tarmac lights. Michael Johnson, Amara's father and the CEO of Horizon Airlines, stepped out, flanked by two senior executives, his commanding presence signaling that this was no ordinary visit. Inside the plane, passengers murmured, "That's Michael Johnson," the airline's owner, as speculation rippled through the rows. Amara, seated in economy, felt a surge of relief mixed with quiet pride, knowing her father's promise to handle this was about to unfold. Michael ascended the aircraft stairs with a purposeful stride, his face a blend of calm authority and paternal concern. As he entered the cabin, conversations ceased, and all eyes turned to him, the weight of his presence silencing even the most casual chatter. He scanned the rows, his gaze softening when it landed on Amara, who met his eyes with a faint smile, her composure unbroken despite the ordeal. Michael walked straight to her, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level, his voice gentle but firm. "You okay?" "Kiddo," he asked, his concern cutting through the cabin's tension. Amara nodded, her voice steady. "I'm fine now, Dad. Thanks for coming." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his warmth grounding her, before his expression shifted to one of steely resolve as he turned toward Evelyn Carter, who stood frozen at the front of the cabin, her earlier bravado replaced by a pale, trembling facade. "Ms. Carter," Michael began, his tone measured but piercing. "I've been informed of your treatment of my daughter, Amara. This isn't about her being my daughter. It's about your failure to treat a passenger with the respect she deserves." Evelyn's lips parted, but her voice faltered. I didn't realize she was your daughter." "Sir?" she stammered, her hands clutching the edge of a service cart for support. Michael's eyes narrowed, his voice unwavering. "That's not the point. You judged her based on assumptions, not her ticket. Horizon Airlines was built on fairness and dignity, values you violated today." The cabin erupted in applause, passengers clapping with enthusiasm, their approval of Michael's words echoing through the space. A woman in economy whispered. She had it coming, while a man nearby nodded. "You can't treat people like that and expect to skate by." Evelyn's face reddened, the applause amplifying her humiliation, and she tried to speak again. "I'm sorry, sir. It was a mistake." Michael raised a hand, silencing her. "Your actions weren't a mistake. They were a choice. And choices have consequences." Turning to the executives beside him, he continued, "Effective immediately. Ms. Carter is suspended from duty. Her behavior doesn't align with our standards, and she will face a full review." One executive, a tall woman in a sharp suit, stepped forward. "Ms. Carter, please come with us," she said firmly. Evelyn's shoulders slumped, her eyes darting to Amara, who met her gaze with calm certainty. No malice, but no forgiveness either. Only the quiet strength of someone who'd endured and prevailed. As Evelyn was escorted off the plane, passengers continued to murmur, some commenting on the poetic justice. "That's what accountability looks like," one said, while another added, "She thought she could get away with it." Amara watched the scene unfold, a mix of vindication and relief washing over her. She thought back to her Harvard days, when she'd faced skepticism from peers who doubted her place in elite spaces, yet she'd risen above it with grace and determination. This moment felt like an extension of that journey, a public affirmation of her worth. Michael returned to her side, his voice soft again. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, searching her face. Amara smiled, stronger now. "I am. Dad, I didn't let her break me." Michael's eyes gleamed with pride. "You never have to thank me for standing up for you," he said. "But I'm proud of how you handled this." As the plane emptied, passengers cast admiring glances at Amara, some nodding in respect, others whispering words of support. One woman, Helen, approached as they disembarked, her voice warm. "You carried yourself with such strength. Young lady, you're an inspiration." Amara thanked her, feeling a spark of purpose ignite within. In the quiet of the now empty cabin, she opened her phone and added to her notes, "Today. I stood tall not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel less. My voice matters." This reflection, scribbled in the aftermath, would later form the heart of a speech that reached over 2 million people online, sparking a movement for equality. As Amara and Michael walked toward the terminal, their bond strengthened by the day's events, she felt a shift within herself, not just a return home, but a step into a new role as an advocate. Outside, the LAX tarmac buzzed with activity, but for Amara, the world felt clearer, her path sharper. She thought of the scholarship she'd earned, the late nights studying, and the barriers she'd broken. And now, this flight, a trial by fire, had revealed a deeper strength. Michael glanced at her, sensing her resolve. "You're going to do big things, Amara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, her heart full. "I already am. Dad." The incident, though painful, had become a catalyst, not just for her, but for Horizon Airlines. In the weeks to come, Michael would announce a $5 million diversity training program for the airline's 25,000 employees, inspired by Amara's ordeal, ensuring no passenger would face such treatment again. Evelyn, meanwhile, left the plane in disgrace, her career in jeopardy. But the seeds of her own reckoning were planted. She would later grapple with her biases in a heartfelt letter to the airline. For Amara, the moment was transformative. As she stepped into the terminal, she felt not just vindicated, but empowered, her experience a beacon for others. She began drafting a speech in her mind, one that would share her story of resilience and inspire change, a speech that would go viral, reaching millions and igniting conversations about dignity and accountability. The flight had ended, but Amara's journey was just beginning, her quiet strength a force that would ripple far beyond the skies, challenging prejudice and uplifting those who'd been told they didn't belong. In the weeks following the dramatic confrontation at Los Angeles International Airport, Amara Johnson's experience on the Horizon Airlines flight became a catalyst for sweeping change. Her phone note, "Today. I stood tall, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel less. My voice matters," evolving into a powerful rallying cry that echoed far beyond the tarmac. Back in Los Angeles, Amara and her father, Michael Johnson, settled into their family home. But the incident lingered in their conversations, fueling a shared determination to ensure no passenger would face the kind of prejudice Amara endured. Michael, as CEO of Horizon Airlines, acted swiftly, announcing a $5 million diversity and inclusion training program for the airline's 25,000 employees. A bold initiative featuring renowned speakers, immersive workshops, and role-playing scenarios designed to confront unconscious biases head-on. He personally oversaw its rollout, ensuring it wasn't just corporate lip service, but a genuine effort to reshape the airline's culture. Inspired by his daughter's resilience, Amara, meanwhile, channeled her experience into action, delivering a speech titled "The Power of Dignity" at a Los Angeles student conference, where she shared her story of standing firm against Evelyn Carter's prejudice. Her words, raw, honest, and infused with the quiet strength she'd shown on the flight, struck a chord. The video of her speech going viral with over 2 million views in a week, shared across platforms with hashtags like #DignityMatters and #StandUpForJustice, inspired by the response. Amara founded a $100,000 scholarship fund for Black students pursuing higher education, a commitment to open doors for others as her father had done for her. "This isn't just about me," she told a cheering crowd. "It's about making sure everyone has a seat at the table." Back at Horizon Airlines, Evelyn Carter, suspended and facing the wreckage of her career, spent sleepless nights grappling with her actions. The public humiliation and Michael's stern rebuke forced her to confront the biases she'd never acknowledged. In a moment of vulnerability, she penned a heartfelt letter to Horizon's leadership, admitting, "I let prejudice guide my actions, and I was wrong. I'm committed to learning and making amends." Michael, moved by her sincerity but firm in his standards, agreed to give her a second chance under strict probation, requiring her to complete the new diversity training and prove her change through actions. Evelyn returned to work a changed woman, engaging deeply in the workshops, listening to colleagues' stories, and serving passengers with a newfound humility, ensuring every traveler, regardless of background, felt valued. Her transformation wasn't instant, but her commitment to growth earned cautious respect from her peers, including Sarah, who noted, "She's not the same person she was on that flight." Amara, hearing of Evelyn's efforts, felt a flicker of hope, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement that change was possible. She reflected on this in a quiet moment at home. Adding to her growing collection of notes, redemption doesn't erase the past, but it can build a better future. This perspective shaped her advocacy, as she began speaking at schools and community centers, urging young people to confront injustice with courage and grace. Her story resonated, inspiring a wave of online testimonials from others who'd faced similar discrimination, creating a virtual community of resilience. Meanwhile, Horizon Airlines' training program became a model for the industry, with other airlines reaching out to Michael for guidance, and the initiative was credited with a 20% increase in positive passenger feedback within months. Amara and Michael, sitting together on a follow-up flight in first class, shared a moment of reflection. The same route, JFK to LAX, felt different now, the cabin staff greeting them with genuine warmth. Amara looked at her father, her voice soft but confident. "Things have changed, haven't they?" Dad Michael nodded, his eyes proud. "Not just here. Amara. In you. In me. In all of us." She smiled, feeling the weight of her journey lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. The flight attendant, a young woman trained under the new program, offered them drinks with a smile that felt like a promise of a new era. Amara's scholarship fund grew, with donations pouring in from those moved by her speech, and she began mentoring recipients, sharing her story to empower them. Evelyn, now a vocal advocate for the training program, spoke at a staff seminar, her voice trembling as she recounted her mistakes and growth, earning nods from colleagues who saw her sincerity. Amara, invited to attend, listened quietly, her presence a reminder of the incident that sparked it all. She didn't speak to Evelyn directly, but her attendant signaled a belief in second chances. As Amara's influence grew, she published an essay online, weaving her notes into a narrative that reached 5 million readers, urging them to choose dignity over division. The essay sparked partnerships with advocacy groups, amplifying her voice back home. She and Michael hosted a dinner for scholarship recipients, where Amara shared her vision. We don't just overcome, we build something better. The room erupted in applause, and Michael, watching his daughter, felt a swell of pride, knowing her strength had not only reshaped their family's legacy, but also set a new standard for Horizon Airlines. As Amara looked out at the young faces, she saw her own journey reflected, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unyielding belief that respect and justice could prevail. Her experience on that fateful flight, once a moment of pain, had become a beacon of hope, proving that one voice, grounded in dignity, could ripple outward, transforming systems, hearts, and futures.